Alrighty. Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming to the second monthly live stream for Growing Up Fundie. I'm your host, Sydney Davis Jr. Tonight, we are going to be joined by my friend and fellow comedian, Farad Mohammed. I think he's shaving right now, so he's running like a little bit behind, but he is still going to be here. He is still coming. He's just not here yet, so we're going to give him a couple minutes to show up. But I am prompt and I am on time, so I didn't want to start after 8 o'clock because I said 8 o'clock is when I was going to start. And he's showing off. That was Will. This is Picasso. They are also joining us for tonight's live stream. There we go. So until Farad gets here, feel free to post questions in the comment. Hello, Slicey. Hello, Moon Shoes. Earlier when people were commenting, I thought they could already see me and I kind of panicked just a little bit, but here we are. I'm trying Streamyard this time. Last time I streamed directly from YouTube. Now I'm trying Streamyard. So far I like it. For anybody who complained in the past about my videos being low quality, now you can see my fake ass eyebrows in HD. So you're welcome. Couple of new things that are happening in the space of Growing Up Fundie. We have 2 ways now that you can sponsor the show if you like the content, if it's something that you want to follow and you want to kind of, I'm going to say sponsor again. We have a Buzzsprout, which is the hub that I use to post the podcast, has a new subscription service now. And then I'm also on Patreon under Sydney Davis Jr. If you subscribe to me on Patreon, you can get the episodes 24 hours before anybody else. And also the money from Patreon and Buzzsprout subscriptions as soon as I get any subscribers. Well, to a number of things, including but not limited to better audio and video equipment, like you're seeing right now, StreamYard as opposed to Zoom and just using YouTube. It'll also go to Science Saves, which is a program that I heavily believe in, whose founder was actually on one of the episodes in the past. And basically what they do is they provide scholarships for seniors who are going into college, and they fund a lot of important science programs, which I think are more important than ever. Hey, what's up, BS Lewis? How's it going? I love that name, by the way. That's hilarious. So if that's something you're interested in, I'm more than willing to come up with some additional perks. We also have a patron of the month. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to announce the very first patron of the month. Let me pull up my Patreon real quick. This is live. No, this is the second. This is the first one where I'm going to have a guest. Last month, I had a January live stream. This is the first guest live stream. He's just not here right now. So the patron of the month is HS. I wish I knew more of the name to be able to give you a better shout out, but patron of the month is HS. He joined us this week. He's brand new, and I really wanted to tell him that I appreciate his contribution because, again, science saves, better sound, better video quality, and also the more subscribers I have, the fewer side hustles I have to work, which means I can interview more people more often, which I love to do. I love to fill my free time with talking to people. I often talk to 3 and 4 interviewees in a single day just to make sure that I get enough content. So there you go. Unfortunately, the money will not go towards more birds. I already have 3, and I think that's my limit. Did you hear him scream? I don't know if you heard him. Picasso. And then I have Shakespeare. And then I have Thomas Edison in the living room, but he doesn't like me, so he's not coming in here. I think it's the red hair. I think he's discriminating because he's the same color. He's orange. So that being said, we are literally just giving Farad some time to log on to the stream and to, I think he said he was shaving or something. He said he was going to be a little bit late. So Farad will be here and he will be talking to us. But if you're interested to learn more about Farad and everything that he was about, he was on episode 20. So if you go back to episode 20, where he talks about being a former Elijah Muhammad Muslim, he's also a stand-up comedian. We met on the Chicago comedy community, and now he lives in LA and I live in Nashville. So we go back, but he will be here tonight. We're just giving him some time to log on to the live stream. And other than that, until he gets here, I can take questions, I can take comments, I can take concerns. But no, BS Lewis, this is not the first live stream. The first one was January, but they will now be the first Friday of every month. And if people enjoy them, I can probably make them more often, right? Again, fewer side hustles I got to do, the more time I've got to live stream and have guests on. I'm also always taking guest recommendations. So if there's somebody you really want to see, I get the majority of my guest recommendations from Discord, Growing Up Fundie. or on the Facebook page, on my website, on the Discord. I've also posted the the Google form where you can either nominate yourself or you can nominate somebody that you really want to see. And I do look at all of those. I contact everybody. I see all of it. A lot of the guests that have been recommended on Discord and in the comments of my YouTube videos have actually been on the show or are slated to be on the show in the future. So I do look at those. I do see them. I do respond. And I give the people what they want. So, let's see here. While we're hanging out, while we're waiting. Oh, while we're waiting, I don't know if you guys saw that Ginger Duggar has a book coming out, or she had a book coming out. And I really thought it was going to be like Spare. I really thought we were here for the tea. So I was so curious to see what she was going to say. And it turns out there is no tea, which I partially like. Part of me respects that because I'm like, yeah, I don't know that I would want to publish a book like crapping all over my family. But at the same time, man, I was really hoping to get some insider details, not just for the podcast, but like for myself. I was really curious to see if any of my own like personal suspicions or whatever about the family and kind of like what they'd been up to the last few years were true. I was curious to see her opinion on a lot of things that were, news headlines. I'm always curious when somebody is the subject of a news headline, how much of it is true, how much of it is very inflammatory. But I guess it's just a nice book, which is upsetting. I was here for the goss, But anyway, so if you haven't read it, because I haven't read it, but I do follow a lot of TikToks that read like celebrity memoirs, and they all said that it's not the piping hot tea that we all thought it was going to be. So there you go. Let's see here. Let's see what is going on Reddit. Do any of you guys follow the Fundie Snark or the Fundie Snark Uncensored? I do. But right now, I'm going to look at ex-Christian and see if there's any topics that we can talk about. Let's see here. We're just giving our friend time to log on. Ex-Christian. There we go. Hold on, it's loading. It's loading. Picasso, Shakespeare. Don't know if I introduced them. I don't know why this is taking so long to load. What subreddit should I follow? What books should I read? What channels should I have on as guests? Let me know. Taking comments until our guest logs on. Let me know anything. It's telling me it can't load ex-Christian, which is bias, I think. I think I should sue. How many of you guys grew up Christian or of any other denomination, religious in any way? I'd love to hear it. Love to hear it. Ow. There we go. Here we go. The first post on ex-Christian says, it's a screenshot of a tweet, and it says, perhaps the most disturbing thing about the concept of a literal hell is how badly Christians want it to be real. I talked a little bit about this in my live stream that I did with Rebekah from Bread of Life. The idea that hell, in terms of using it as a scare tactic, in terms of using it to kind of keep people in line, hell and the rapture, I think, are two of the most interesting topics in terms of things that don't have to be real, and yet so many people want to believe that they're real. The idea that you would strive towards a belief that thinks that things like the rapture and that like burning for eternity in hell are real. It's always been very interesting concepts to me, and the weirdest part was when I was my most heavily involved in Christianity and in church, it didn't seem that weird. Like it just made sense. It's like, yeah, of course, if you sin, if you go against God, like you're going to burn to death forever. It makes perfect sense. But I feel like the punishment is not befitting of the crime, if that makes sense. Like, I don't feel like people who commit mass genocide should go to the same place as like people who masturbate and like don't ask forgiveness. I don't know. Am I allowed to say that on YouTube live stream? I don't know. This isn't monetized anyway, so it's fine. Let's see here. Skeptics and Scoundrels is a good new, XJW that would be a good interview. I think his name is Eric. Excellent. Wonderful. I really appreciate that recommendation. Then Moonshoe says, I was baptized and confirmed Catholic and attended a seminary boarding school in high school. So, seminary boarding school, does that mean like you were trying to go into the clergy, or was it just like a super duper religious high school? Were you actually trying to be I don't want to say pastor, a priest or something else? Let me know. Let me know your thoughts. So yeah, back to what we were talking about. My partner did not grow up religious at all. He did not grow up religious to any degree. And I've mentioned on the channel before, when I was explaining to him revelations and the ideas of hell, he literally couldn't fathom it. He didn't believe me. He thought I was making it up. He thought I was just making it up because he didn't grow up religious and wouldn't be able to tell me that he wouldn't be able to tell whether or not that was true. And he was like, nobody believes revelations. Like, nobody believes the rapture. That's not true. And I said, yes, it is. A lot of people believe the rapture, to the point where rapture anxiety is an actual thing. Rapture anxiety is a real type of anxiety that impacts people who were either raised Christian or are still Christian, depending on the denomination that you grew up in. Because I know that there are a few. I learned, especially when I was talking to Rebekah from Bread of Life, shout out to her channel, that not every Christian denomination believes in that, which is interesting to me because it's literally in the Bible. Like, I don't understand, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, the idea that some of you are just going to get sucked into heaven because you did everything that you were supposed to do, like in the Left Behind movies, with your clothes just like in a pile on the ground, and then the rest of you are going to burn forever for eternity. Wild. And again, growing up in the church, it didn't seem like that weird of a concept. That's the most disturbing part, I think. When I was growing up, I'm a 10-year-old kid reciting Bible verses for stickers and patches like the Girl Scouts, except it was called Awanas and it was for all genders. It just made sense. I was like, yeah, if you sin, you go to hell. That makes perfect sense. And the idea that at the same time on Sundays and Wednesdays, I was hearing, everybody sins. Everybody's born a sinner. No matter what you do, you're going to sin. You just need to ask forgiveness. And it made sense at the time. It was like, yeah, checks out. And that's disturbing to me, right? So nowadays, if you came up to me and you were like, hey, so here's the new laws. If you do this thing, wait, I just realized Moonshoes, your comment's been pinned up here the whole time I've just been talking. If you do this thing and you it's against the law, you are going to be thrown into a volcano. You're going to be tortured and then thrown into a volcano. It's like, oof, what do you have to do to get that? It's like, I don't know, lie, touch yourself, commit mass genocide. It's like, whoa, I feel like there is 0 to 60. I feel like there's a lot of steps in between those two before that becomes a thing. But hold on one second. I've got some more comments down here. Gonna click on some of these and I won't leave them frozen. Okay, so I had asked Moonshoes if he went to that seminary high school in order to be a priest. And he said, it wasn't my intention to become a priest. I was sent there as a result of terrible parenting decisions. Yeah, perfect. Wonderful. Let's see. Finn Hammer says, Left Behind series was Bible V2 to me. I was a naive little kid. So yeah, like the Left Behind series, man, that was what's sold to us as like real. Like Kirk Cameron, like he sold it, man. He really did. I don't know where they found that guy, but they did. Let's see here. There's a chat bot. Nah. I was hoping it was somebody who really did write a paragraph. I thought it was somebody who was really mad about what I said about rapture anxiety. But where I was going with that talk about rapture anxiety is when you consider the idea that there are people out there who truly believe that the rapture is coming and they truly believe it's the end of times, right? Like we like to laugh at those people who stand on the corner. It's like, God's coming. The rapture's coming or the end of times is coming. There's a guy on my corner, literally like 2 blocks away. He's been standing there. I've been living here for almost 2 years and he's been there almost every single day except the holidays, which leads me to believe he has a family somewhere who clearly does not care about him because they let him stand out there in all sorts of weather. And they genuinely believe these things. They truly believe that what they're doing, standing out there with a sandwich board, telling people that they're going to burn forever if they don't repent today, they honestly think that they are going out there and doing a good thing. The same way that I clicked go live on this broadcast and decided to talk to you guys on YouTube, that guy got up this morning or every morning and was like, you know what seems like a good way to spend my time is going out there with a sandwich board and telling people that they're going to die. They're going to burn forever. But enough of that ramble. We have Farad Muhammad in the wings, and I'm going to bring him onto the live stream.
Hello there.
Oh, you look freshly shorn.
I'm sorry.
I said you look freshly shorn.
Thank you.
You look wonderful. You look
Yes,
wonderful.
yeah, I kind of looked like, well, part of like one of the, like a very early version of a Morgan Freeman character before he gets to the hero, before he goes through the hero's journey there. So, yeah, it's nice that the beard is gone. So yeah.
I like that my podcast is the hero's journey. That's what this
Yes.
is for you. Farad, how are you?
I can't complain. Yeah, just adjusting to my life here in Los Angeles. I moved to Los Angeles since I last chatted with you on this
Hmm.
podcast, and yeah, it's just been a bit of a whirlwind of activity. Sometimes the whirlwind, other times it's just me doing work and then watching television with my lovely wife and then going to sleep. But other times there are some there are lots of activities going on, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think last time we spoke, you
Hmm.
were literally like a week or two away from moving to LA. And
Yes,
I told them before this started, but maybe some people logged on after I said it, that we initially connected through the Chicago comedy community. We both do
correct.
stand up. And then I'm in Nashville now, and you're in LA.
Hmm.
How's it going down there? Like, how's stand up there? Is it different? How is
I
it
mean,
not being in Chicago anymore for the winter?
not being in Chicago for the winter has been absolutely fantastic.
You could
I
not pay me enough to go back.
Yeah, I do feel for the people that I know and love that are still over there, that love being over there and everything like that. But after 42 years of winters, I was kind of done with it for the time being. But no, but just in Los Angeles has been kind of strange. The expressways are a lot more complicated. That much is certain, and the comedy scene has been pretty has been pretty decent. I mean, yes, you do good. You can go to the comedy store and see like nationally touring comedians and everything like that. But then also on the other side, you get to see some comedians that are making their way and really finding their voice and really doing some excellent work there as well. So it's they're not all pros over there, but because I'm sure there's some people who start in Los Angeles because they've lived in Los Angeles their entire life. But yeah, you could definitely see there's a lot more polish to some of the presentations in terms of the shows and in terms of the presentations. But overall, I think that I kind of see the Chicago West in some ways there because there are a lot of Chicago comedians who have moved to Los Angeles, and I've been trying to keep up with them there as well.
Yeah.
But overall, I think that it's different but yet kind of the same. So
Yeah.
hopefully that doesn't sound like a non-answer, but yeah.
No, no, no. I completely agree. Same thing with Nashville. There's been like a mass exodus of people from Chicago to Nashville. I don't know why. I didn't know that when I moved here. I literally moved here because I wanted to go someplace warm. Like that's it. Like there was no creative decision involved in that. I just happened to get involved in comedy once I got down here. And it's like it's almost like you never left because you see some of
Yeah,
those same people. You're like, what the? It's like when you go to a new school and like some of the kids from your old school are there. You're like, hey,
precisely.
we weren't
Yeah.
friends before, but now we are. Um, so tell us a little bit about yourself, your
Okay.
background in terms of the religion you grew up in, what you're here to talk about. Fill us in.
Sure. All right. So my name is Farah Muhammad, and I was brought up in like an offshoot of Islam, because the Nation of Islam is kind of an offshoot of Islam. Although people who are Orthodox Islam will probably just say no, that's not Islam at all, which I kind of understand. But I grew up in a version of it that was kind of taught by like my family members. That was kind of like one level removed from the actual actual mosques and stuff. So I never went to a mosque. I never even saw Farrakhan in person or anything like that. I was kind of brought up in like the Elijah Muhammad version of Islam, even though Elijah had died like 5 years before I was born. And yeah, I think overall it was just it was an interesting way to be brought up. But after I got into my 20s and stuff, it became quite evident to me that that was probably not the way for me to go, and I ended up being like I called it my spiritual but not religious, and then and then during my first marriage I was more agnostic, and now I'm pretty much an atheist. So yeah,
Interesting.
bit of a it's a bit of a transition
I
there,
was
of
gonna
course.
say it's quite the journey, and I feel like I'm learning more things in this intro than I did in episode 20 that you were on. I picked up on a couple of things, and I'm like, I don't think you said that last time. So, I'm curious about your personal experience within Islam.
Hmm.
Is there, in a similar way to Christianity, is there kind of like a hierarchy of the types of Islam? Like some think they're more faithful or more dedicated or more correct than other types of Islam?
Oh, I'm sure there are. I didn't really experience that
Yeah.
myself firsthand, but I do know that there was that, like the Sunni and the Shiites who are over in the Middle East would consider themselves to be more of the true Islam.
Yeah.
And the Nation of Islam is pretty much more like the Mormons of Islam. They hold they hold kind of the same tenets, but the mythology of it gets to be a little bit more strange.
Yeah.
And then my version of it is almost like, I don't even know anymore,
Like
but
casual Islam.
yeah, kind of. I mean, for one thing, I did not do Ramadan when I was growing up because my family believed that I needed to eat while I was in school in order so I could be able to grow properly, and that I was supposed to do that later on in life. But then later on in life, I stopped being religious entirely, so I never did Ramadan. Um, but um, but I mean, and we also didn't pray 5 times a day. We did pray, but just not within those particular set times. And we were told about the 5 pillars of Islam, but off the top of my head, I can't remember what they are at this point.
Yes.
But
Listen, same. I can't list all 11 commandments, and that was literally like my one job growing up.
yeah.
Um, so like I know because in Christianity, and I didn't know this until I started this podcast. Every time I talk to somebody who grew up like very strictly fundamentalist, and I tell them I was
Mhm.
Baptist, they're like, "Oh, so you're basically not even Christian." And I didn't know that other forms of Christianity thought that Baptists were like this shitty, doesn't work hard kind of Christians. I didn't know that. Like they all say that. They
Mhm.
all make some joke about how like, oh, like you're the lame kind. Like you're the kind that doesn't do it right. Like we weren't allowed to hang out with Baptists. So I was just curious if there's like a similar thing with like different sects or types of Islam.
If there was, they thankfully didn't really say it to my face.
Yeah, they didn't say to me until
Yes.
now. Yeah.
But no, I do believe that yeah, especially especially in relation to the Nation of Islam, I'm sure that the more orthodox versions of it would consider it to be, a lot more faithful to the original tenets of Muhammad and everything like that. So yeah.
Right. Interesting. And so, about how old were you when you started to decide that being religious was not your thing?
Definitely my 20s. And not to sound cliche, and I think I mentioned this while I was in my previous appearance, September 11 was kind of like a catalyst for it.
Yeah.
Not to, and then, granted, most of the people that believe in Islam probably abhor the notion of what these people did, what the 19 hijackers did on
Oh
September
yeah.
11 and
Yeah,
everything like that.
absolutely.
And I completely empathize with them that they had to go through a lot of really really horrible stuff afterwards because there was a lot of prejudice and profiling and everything like that. That was really really bad. Um, but at the same time, I do remember that. I do remember that there were some members of my family who were not really celebrating that September 11 happened, but did say that it was something. It was caused by God, and I just could not really see myself being anything like that at all.
Right.
Um, and also there's also this I mean, one of the things that a lot of Muslims say, and a lot of things that I see a lot of Muslims profess and everything like that, is the fact that they don't really hate a lot of people, and that's definitely true for a lot of the people out there. In the case of the Nation of Islam, a lot of it was based on like this hatred of America and white people and everything like that, and I just could not really see myself hating a group of people en
Yeah.
masse like that, because it's basically fighting racism with more racism, and I just could
Right.
not really, I could not really do that because a lot of my friends are of all different or are of multiple sorts of races, and I couldn't hate somebody individually just because their family just happened to be from the Caucasus Mountains or from Africa or from Asia or whatever the case may be. So I just
Yeah.
couldn't do that.
Well, and the interesting part about that comment about somebody saying like, "Oh, this is like God did this,"
Hmm.
is when I was my most devout Christian, and if I were to ever hear somebody say that, I'd be like, are you kidding? God would never do that. How horrible. How could you say that? Yada, yada, yada. Now that I've read the Bible, I'm like, not saying he did it, but he wiped out a lot of people for doing things he didn't like. You know what I mean? It's like,
right. Yeah.
And so when you hear that, it's like, as somebody who is religious, you become defensive. But as somebody who's like literally read the Bible, you're like, I don't think he did it. But of all the things he's done in the Bible, a lot of them were punishing large groups of people with mass extinction via floods, via turning them into pillars of salt, Sodom and Gomorrah. So it's almost like interesting to hear somebody say something almost more biblical and to be like, wow, how awful. It's like, but that's a biblical thing. I'm just saying, if there was a third testament, there's the Old Testament and the New Testament. If there was like a New Testament, if there was like a Gen Z Testament, it might have some things that have happened recently in it. I don't know. Like, we just have to see maybe one day.
But, it's possible. I mean, I'm guessing that both of us will be long dead when that happens. But
true, deceased. And please, anybody watching, I'm not saying God did it. I'm not saying God did 9/11. None of that. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But so, what was your experience like? Kind of once you decided that, once you're like, this isn't something that I can be involved in, like these comments, things like that. Did you feel the need to like come out, to like tell anyone about it or anything like that? Or was it just kind of a thing you kept to yourself and just explored mentally?
It was a little bit of both. I mean, it was a slow turning down of a dial more than anything else of like my loosening tendrils to the Nation of Islam and everything like that, or at least my version of it that I was raised with. Because even when I was still like believing in the whole tenets of it, and I was really starting to kind of let go of the whole racial elements when I was in my late teens, because it just seemed so wrong in order for me to say, my schoolmates are going to be destroyed by a mothership or something like that. So, and that's one of the tenets that the people of the Nation of Islam, at least during the Elijah Muhammad era, were kind of raised with. So, So yeah, I do remember talking about it with my family, and even, and I know that my brother was kind of going through a similar sort of like exploration about what he believes and everything like that around the same time. So we were having like these conversations about what, where do we see ourselves, and what sort of in the grand scheme of things, and how do we interpret what is beyond our comprehension, and what our interpretation of the unknowable and everything like that. So those are really, really cool conversations that my brother and I had.
Yeah.
But the rest. I know I didn't tell my grandmother that I decided not to believe in the Nation of Islam anymore, because she was in her like 70s at that point here, so it really made no sense for me to do that. And plus, I didn't want to get taken out of the will. Then it turned out there was no will, so it didn't even matter. But
gotta get ready for that coin just in case.
But no. But no, I did feel that it was a little bit more of a personal journey than it was for me to kind of announce it. Right. But at the same time, I did tell my family in some ways, shapes, or forms at different points in time. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about intertwining your experiences within Islam with your stand-up content? Has that ever been a thing, or do you already do that and I just missed it?
Kind of, sort of. I mainly just talk about the origin of my name, especially given the fact that I'm named after two of the founders of the Nation of Islam. My first name is named after the guy who's believed to be God in that religion, and my middle name, Elijah, is pretty much the person who was in charge of the Nation of Islam until his death in 1975. So it's Faradi Elijah Muhammad. So it's like so I do talk about that a little bit. But I did also write a couple of jokes about, like what would a Nation of Islam comedy club be, or something like that, where you end up doing like 5 minutes of material and then 19 minutes talking about how evil the white man is, and
Elijah Muhammad.
Oh my God!
I'm sorry, man. My second live stream and I'm canceled. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah. Anyway, but no, I've written a couple of jokes, and I need to tweak them, and hopefully I could do those in some open mics while I'm over here in Los Angeles. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Speaking of that, this is more comedy related than religion related. I've
yes,
heard, but this was years ago. I've heard that there are a lot fewer showcases and open mics in LA than in like Chicago, for example. And so that's why, you were talking about how everybody's way more polished. That's why the people that you see are so much more polished and refined because they had to work like 10 times harder to get some stage time.
absolutely,
Is that true?
yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Either that or they just built up they managed to build up their comedy muscles in their hometown, moved over to a place like Chicago or
Yep.
Dallas or something like that, or Austin in order to build up their career further, and then move to Los Angeles afterwards. So it's a little bit of a mixture of both. But no, if one were to look, one could be able to find open mics that they can be able to go to.
Yeah.
The only thing though is that unlike Chicago, a lot of them require either bringing people with you,
Bringers.
bringer shows, or you have to pay admission or something like that. But there are a few other ones that you could be able to go to and just sign up in advance, and hopefully you could be able to get in through a lottery or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a lot of more competition for open mics. Compared to Chicago, absolutely, but you can still find your way in them if you know the right way in order to do so.
Yeah. And who would you say are your biggest comedy inspirations?
Oh well, I mean, I mean, this would sound a little bit self-serving, but I would say that Dennis Miller would probably be one of my major ones. I was a huge fan of his when he was on SNL during Weekend Update, and I would also watch Dennis Miller live on HBO like religiously whenever he would be on there for lack of a better term.
Religiously.
Um, but but no, and even when he went a little bit more conservative, I still was able to find the comedy from within that change of his attitude, or at least his more pronounced of that attitude,
Right.
and and I also managed to communicate with him when he had his radio show. But anyway, that's one of my influences. Another one would probably be George Carlin. That's a huge one there. Um, the cast of Saturday Night Live, no matter what cast you're talking about.
I was going to say, which era?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I would say like in terms of influences, I would say like anywhere from like the not ready for primetime players all the way up until like the mid '90s or something like that. Those are
Yeah.
probably like because those are the people that I would watch when I was young and say if I do get into comedy, I would love to be on a show like that, and I still would hope to host a show like that, but because I know I'm a little bit too old in order to be in the cast now, and also way too much on the other side of the country. But I do think that yeah, I mean those are like some of the major influences there. There's another one who I cannot name because he's way canceled. But during the time when he was America's Dad, he would also have like these really funny comedy albums, and my family and I would listen to them all the time. We watch his television show and blah 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 blah. So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then Colt says, I like Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle's cool, yeah.
Yeah.
He's definitely older than me, so and he definitely did have like you could definitely see his trajectory.
Yes.
Back from, like when he started on like when he did like his network appearance on Letterman or something like that,
Yes.
and like his catchphrase was like "Where are you, black people?" or something like that, all the way up until now, where he's doing all the different sorts of controversial comedy, but also
Right.
some really funny observational comedy and comedy about
Right.
his background and everything like that, and everything else in between there.
Yes.
Yeah, he is quite a capable comedian,
Right.
and yeah. So
Yeah, and I feel the exact same way. Obviously, since he's been doing all of his like super duper like canceled but not canceled type content, I haven't really seen much of his like maybe last special. But what I've always liked about Dave Chappelle was I feel like I'm a long form like storytelling type
yes,
comic,
yeah.
and he's the master at that. Whether I agree with his actual content or not, he's literally the master of long form, start at one thing, end at another, but the way you get there, seamless and flawless, bring it on back, close with a callback that you don't expect, boom. Like stellar in that department. So I've definitely, I call myself a Dave Chappologist in that aspect, because like, I mean, whether or not you agree with like content, again, I haven't listened to his most recent special just because it was so like controversial. I when something makes the news a lot, I just have a difficult time like focusing on it unbiasedly to like get my own opinion when like everybody loves a show or something. But yeah, I mean, in terms of structure and like the literal way that he, I guess structure is the main word I'm thinking of. The way that he like conducts himself on stage and the way that he structures a set, it's just, it can't be beat, man. It just can't be
Yeah.
beat as like
No, I
from a writing
remember.
perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when he did like for like throughout an entire show, he talked about 4 stories where he met O.J. Simpson, and he was able to like kind of weave through like the history of him, being associated with O.J. Simpson, and what was going on with O.J. during that time and everything like that. It was really fascinating to hear hear
Yeah.
it in the context of the entire special as well as the individual clips when they were edited together. I think on YouTube or something like that.
Right.
Another really cool long form storyteller that I really enjoy is one of your all time favorites, Craig Ferguson.
Craig Ferguson,
Um,
my idol. The Late Late Show. That show raised
yes.
me.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, much like you, I was also quite, quite enamored with with different sorts of late night talk shows. I mean, for you, it was the Late Late Show. For me, it was definitely the Late Show with David Letterman. A little bit of the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, starring Johnny Carson, but he left the show when I was 12, and I was still trying to get up and to go to school, so I didn't see a lot of his work, but I did see a lot of clips of his work through like compilation shows like Carson's Comedy Classics, and I ended up getting like VHS tapes of his shows and everything. And most definitely the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. There was definitely a progression there, as well
Yes.
as, and most particularly, late night to the Tonight Show, as well as the TBS show with Conan O'Brien.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you, my Facebook friends can attest to the fact that I talk about Conan a little bit way too much, but no, I've been really, and I think that Conan was definitely the Letterman of my generation, because
Yeah.
I think the Letterman was definitely of like the '80s and people who grew up in the '70s sort of generation, because that was like the talk show host that was kind of like the counter to Carson, and the very very surreal and Dadaist humor of Conan really just jibed with me after I really started to get his humor there. So
Yes.
yeah, absolutely.
And if either Conan or Craig ever get canceled or ever get revealed to be just like shitty dudes, I'm just gonna quit comedy in general. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna be like, there's no hope for me. There's just not, because so many of my childhood like like celebrity idols. I wouldn't say idols, but like Craig Ferguson was literally the only like true idol that I had as a kid. But for
Hmm.
example, I used to travel across the country to go see Benny Hinn, the
Benny
the
Hinn.
the big giant televangelist
Oh, okay,
who
gotcha. Yeah,
who
yeah.
would like sell out stadiums in Texas and stuff, and now he's like in prison. So like yeah, like okay, so like, when I was a kid, I used to like, that was like going to a concert. Like the way that people are about to travel across the country to go see Taylor Swift this summer,
Hmm. Yeah.
that was me going to see Benny Hinn. Like packing snacks, comfortable shoes, fanny pack for all your things to hold, so that you could like
Hmm.
raise your hands like in worship, like, and now he's in prison, right? And he who shall not be named, who I'm pretty sure you were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
cannot be named, right? And Dave Chappelle, man, he's almost like, the only reason he hasn't been canceled yet is because he just doesn't believe in getting canceled. I don't know how he does that. I literally don't. He's like the buoy on top of the water, and like when everybody else is sinking on the Titanic, he's just like, nah. And people are just like, oh, okay. Like I guess
Yeah.
we can't cancel you. Um yeah, Benny Hinn, man. And yeah, I remember I used to go see that guy. Like I used to watch him like lay his hands and heal people, and now he's in prison because he's a fraud, obviously. Like
Yeah.
obviously. And I feel like I get a pass because I was like 10. But like if seeing that stuff as an adult, I don't even know what I would think. I don't even know. These televangelists, man, I feel like they're getting their comeuppance right now. People aren't
Yeah.
like falling for their shit anymore, and I think a lot of that has to do with like Gen Z. I think Gen Z is just coming for blood for everybody. They're just releasing clips, they're going back in time, they're doing the way back machine, they're finding
Yeah.
old shit. So that's why I'm nervous though, that they're gonna find something on Craig.
And the thing is that I don't. I certainly hope that they don't, and I don't really think that they will, because of the fact that I think that his, and hopefully this won't be used in some sort of clip afterwards if he does get canceled. But I really don't think he will, because the way he is able to conduct himself both on and off the stage has proven to be rather cool,
Yeah.
and rather respectful of his audience and everything like that. And
Yeah.
I do think that will carry onward, and I do think that it will not be, and So yeah, I don't think that there's really going to be anything that they're going to find about him or anything like that. So hopefully that'll be the case there. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I hope not either. I hope not. It's same with Conan, man. If they find anything
yeah.
on Conan, I'm just like, I'm done. Like, I'm out of here. I'm just deleting everything. Like, I'm just going off the grid. Has there ever been a point in your life where you felt so disconnected from Islam that you felt like changing your name, or that you considered changing your name or going by something else?
The name has always been a bit of a weird spot for me. I like the mystique of the name. I like the fact that it's only 4 letters long and it has 2 syllables in it. However, if I were to get into entertainment, I would have to adopt a stage name because I really don't want people to. I really don't want to have to do the whole. It's actually pronounced for over and over again, and plus, not that many people are really going to put in the not to say put in the effort. They don't have time in order to look up how my name is pronounced, and I completely understand that. I mean, like Willem Dafoe, his name is actually, I believe, pronounced Dafoe, but everybody pronounces it Dafoe, so he's now Willem Dafoe.
And
Um,
yet, people can get up and say things like Daenerys Targaryen without any problem
true,
whatsoever.
true, yeah, and
It's just interesting how we pick and choose.
but I also think that the history behind my name, for one thing, carries a lot of weight if people know about the history of the Nation of Islam, and two, makes it exceedingly hard to Google. I look up my name all the time on Google, not all the time. I look up my name a lot on Google, and every single time I find like Nation of Islam stuff and the Buster Rhymes video called Master Farad Muhammad and so forth and so on, and then at the same time I see like review videos or reaction videos of the Buster Rhymes video, and all of them say Master Farad Muhammad. So it's just it's such an idiosyncratic name that I can't really see myself carrying on with it if I were to move on to a television show or have or host a talk show or something like that. At the
Would
same
you ever just
time,
like add the
oh,
A to it? Like
thing
the
is that I've been weighing that, and the thing though is that FARAD is also a farad, which is a unit of capacitance, and
Oh.
so people might pronounce it as Farad Muhammad. And I think the major problem is just that the name Muhammad is also in there too. And plus, if you type in Farad Muhammad, it'll also return a whole bunch of Master Farad Muhammad stuff from the Nation of Islam. So I'm kind of screwed either way. I've been toying with the idea of using the name Fred Mulholland. Um, Mainly because it has the same initials, and also
Yeah.
it's similar in structure in terms of the lettering, so that if I were to sign my name, it would still kind of look like it, because I practiced my signature, admittedly, since I was like 13 years old. I really
Right.
like my signature, and I
Right.
don't really want to learn a new one all over again for another name that's completely different. But yeah, so I'll deal with that as the time when the time comes. Like if I have to get admitted into SAG and I have to find a stage name because there's somebody else named Farad Muhammad out there that is that's like a grip or something like that, then I'll need to focus on that later on. But
Hey, you're that guy who was best boy #1 on
exactly.
the on the third on the third. I was about to say UFC, but that's not it. Like MCU. There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Movie. I don't know. You can tell I just know. Do you think that there are any benefits to having a name so greatly connected to Islam in entertainment in terms of having a large Islamic following? Like, do you think it would benefit you in that way as opposed to changing your name and maybe people not finding you who would
um,
otherwise follow you?
no, I don't think so. Mainly because I consider myself an atheist now. It would be rather disrespectful in order for me to bank on my name to get
Got it.
a large Islamic following, because I pretty much eschewed the tenets almost entirely, except for the fact I don't eat pork still. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to bank on that just to get a particular audience. I mean, I would want my I don't want the audience to be grown because of my name. I want it to be because of the work that I put in toward the stuff that I put on the screen or
Got
off the
it.
screen if I'm doing like graphic stuff. So yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I think that's really big of you. I know that there's a lot of people who would capitalize on whatever they could, even if they didn't necessarily believe in it, or which I think is a lot of these televangelists that we see. The prime example of people who capitalize on stuff they don't believe, but
Oh
know that a
yeah.
lot of people do. One of the things that I heard multiple times from your episode 20, for anyone who
Hmm.
just logged in, was people who did not previously find anything about leaving the either Islam or the Elijah Muhammad Islam, and
Hmm.
how they loved your interview because one, it was one of the only ones they could find, and two, you had like such a fun, like funny, pleasant demeanor while also talking about very serious things. Where I feel like in a lot of spaces, when you talk about things like, I left the Nation of Islam, it's usually kind of dark and heavy, and
Mm.
like there's like a hint of shame to it, even if you're not ashamed of leaving. But yours wasn't like that. And so I just thought that was really cool, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have you back, is because a lot of people really liked you. Christians really liked you, atheists really liked you, former Muslims who are now agnostic or atheists really liked you. And so do you think that in the future there's any space for you to make content geared towards people who left Islam, or is that kind of like a chapter in your life that's just happened and
See, the thing is that I wouldn't want that to be like my only claim to
that's
fame.
not
But
your
if
brand?
right, but if there were enough people that wanted to hear more about that, then yeah. I mean, the thing is that, I mean, once I tell my story, that's pretty much it. It's like I don't know. I mean, unless I talk with other people who also are considering leaving or something like that, I might be able to give them some sort of advice. But I mean, it actually hasn't really occurred to me to do anything like that.
Yeah.
But if there is enough of a if there's enough of a reason for me to start doing that, I wouldn't say no.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
I love how you're like, no, that's just like a part of me, that's just a segment, it's not my whole thing, and I'm like, I'm about to make it my whole brand. Like that's all I want to be known for, is I left that shit behind in the dust. Like, I think I've mentioned every single time I've ever recorded that I grew up with the Duggars from 19 Kids and
Mm.
Counting. I'm like, I knew the Duggars, I knew the Duggars, I knew the Duggars. Hey, did you guys know? Like, that's my claim to fame. I knew the Duggars. Um, so, that being said, would you say that there is any kind of like advice, or would you say that there's anything you wish you knew earlier before you decided to leave the Nation of Islam that might be helpful to people, or that they should consider before making that decision?
Um. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure with all religions, just make sure that it doesn't like cause a huge rift with the people that you care for. I mean, not to say that if it does that you shouldn't. I'm just saying that you gotta, if that does become the case, you gotta prepare for it. And just know that I mean, not to say that God wouldn't punish you if you did leave, but I mean, it hasn't happened to me yet. I mean, that's famous last words, but
Yeah.
um, but no, I do think that that leaving that religion was definitely something that I grappled with for years. And again, it was a very, very if you want to just cut ties entirely and then just focus on either joining another religion or not having a religion at all or being more spiritual or something like that, that's absolutely fine. If you want it to be a little bit more gradual, I mean, as I said before, I still don't eat pork, and that's just now it's just more of a personal taste than anything else. I also don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, which doesn't really make me relatable to any of the comedians
I
out
was
there.
gonna
But
say, you're
anyway,
never gonna make it in comedy without a coke habit. Come on.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I may have mentioned this in episode 20, but yeah, I mean, basically just the idea that that I mean, there are like four different comedians that go up on stage talking about how much they love doing pot or mushrooms or drinking, or some of them even mention cocaine. And then I go up there and go, Robitussin, that's a kick in the pants. And then I
Yeah.
tell you something right here, ooh, that caffeine keeps me up all night. It's a bit of a break from the overall flow of the show. And a lot more people in the audience are are a lot more open to doing different sorts of, at least in the comedy clubs that I've gone to, are more open to doing these different sorts of quote unquote vices and everything like that. So I mean, it's almost like going up on stage and telling people I don't like cats, which I don't. But the fact of the matter is that if I go up there and tell them that immediately, they're going to like half the audience is just going to shut me off completely.
You're done. You're canceled. Like, that would be wild if that's what got you canceled. Like, nothing else. Like, turns out he just pissed off all the cat people. Like, it was wild. Like,
Yeah,
I didn't see that coming.
if there's one thing on the internet I know is that you don't mess with the cat people. Right here, I'll tell you. But but anyway, no. I mean, you approach it. Yeah, approach the leaving of any. And this goes for any religion, pretty much. Approach it the way you would want to do it. You go at your speed. If you're feeling like you're going too slow, you're not. If you feel like you're going too fast, but you're still comfortable, you're not. I mean, as long as you're okay, as long as everybody else around you is okay, it should be pretty decent there. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Have you ever heard like a point or an argument from like any other religion that's made you be like, maybe I'll explore that one day? Or is atheism pretty much where you're at?
I think atheism is pretty much where I'm at. I mean, because growing up in the religious upbringing that I had, I was under the belief that pretty much all the other religions were incorrect at the very least, and
Right.
so, um, and so to believe in something like to believe in the stuff that I believed in, going all the way from like God being born in 1877 to a mothership being flown around since 1914 and all that sort of thing, for me to believe in that wholeheartedly and then think everything else is wrong, to go into something else that believes that their way is correct but everybody else's is wrong is it's like going from one hole into another hole inside of ET from on the 2600 or something like that.
Yeah.
Again, if it makes you happy and if you believe wholeheartedly and if you have absolute faith, brilliant, fantastic. I have no qualms against anybody who has any sort of religious upbringing and are still sticking with it. It's just not for me. So
Right.
That's just the way it is there.
Right.
And if it end up going to hell, I kind of I've done enough stuff that doesn't involve drugs that probably has gotten me probably given me a hell pass already. So
At least you're not there because of coke. That's
exactly.
or
Yes,
pork.
yes.
You're not there for pork either. So that's
Exactly.
none of those two. It could be literally anything else. Now for people who didn't listen to episode 20, they might
yes.
be like, what's with the mothership comment? What was that about?
Okay, so apparently, and again, this was what I was taught, and I don't know if it's being taught anymore in the Nation of Islam. I haven't really been following any of the speeches that Farrakhan has made. I don't even know if Farrakhan is still doing speeches right now. I think like last year was like his last one. I really don't know. But anyway, apparently, in accordance with the teachings of Elijah Muhammad, and you can be able to find this, I believe, in like Our Savior Has Arrived or a Message to the Black Man, and both one or two of Elijah Muhammad's books, that apparently Master Farad Muhammad, who was believed to be God in person, was able to build up a mothership, like a huge spaceship that's about a mile in diameter, back in like 1914 or something like that, in Japan, of all places. I mean, then again, made in Japan, that kind of makes sense now. But back in 1914, I'm not too sure if that was the case. And what they were going to do, and but basically the mothership went elsewhere, and then it was supposed to be coming back and basically destroy America. I don't know if it's going to destroy Canada or Mexico, but it was going to destroy America by basically bringing down bombs into the ground, 5 miles into the ground, and like explode them from underground. Mind you, that's a horribly inefficient way to bomb a place. But
right. It's like, listen, just logistically, that's just not a good idea.
Exactly. But again, the person who made up the mothership idea probably did not know about the conservation of energy or anything like that. So it's understandable that would be the belief there. So anyway, so yeah, that was that. And then basically everybody who was in America who believes in the Nation of Islam and everything like that would be taken up in these smaller ships, and they would be these smaller ships would be flying by, and you'd be meeting up at these little men on the street corner or something like that, and then they would tell you how to get out of there and everything. I don't know how the logistics worked in that particular case. I don't think they knew how the logistics work in that particular case back then either. But anyway, that was what was believed for the Nation of Islam at that point. So yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much the mothership story. It was it's such a weird, like Xenu level sort of a portion of this particular religion, except you don't have to spend like tens of thousands of dollars to Scientology in order to find out about it. It was taught like directly in the stadiums in front of by Elijah Muhammad and a whole bunch of other people all around the country. So yeah.
Right. I'm just going to take a second to say hey to some people in the chat. We have Rebekah from Bread of Life, who was on my channel, and then I was on her channel. She's got a really fantastic channel. She is a devout Christian. We kind of debated back and forth on my channel. She had me on hers. We debated a little bit there. Hi, Rebekah, if you're still on. And then Colt mentioned that he has to leave. See you, Colt. Same with Moon Shoes. Let me know what time zone you guys are in, and I can stream a little bit earlier if this is too late for you. Just let me know. I picked Central because I feel like most people kind of plan around Central Time, at least on television they do. And if anybody has any questions for Farad while we're on for the next few minutes, feel free to put them in the chat. I know it's a little bit delayed, but we'll get to them as soon as we see them. But other than that, so Thanks for letting me take a moment there to. I feel like I was plugging a sponsor just then. Sponsored by Birds.
Well, it's a little bit of housekeeping,
Yeah.
it's completely understandable.
Oh yeah, yeah. I just want to say hey. I'm so used to like interviewing people without like live comments going that I'm like, oh, I want to make sure that I get to their comments if they have any questions. And then somebody said, pick your nose if you want to go on a date with me. And then I scratched my nose before I saw it, so now they're convinced that we have to go on a date. No, that was not. I was not sending you a subliminal message. I'm sorry. I don't even. You're an animated. I don't even know what you look like. You're an animated emoticon there. Emoticon. Do people still say that?
I do, but nobody else does. I still use emoticon. I still prefer emoticons over emojis, but that's just me. Yeah.
So with the next few, like say 5 years, what
Mhm.
would you at this time? What would you like to have happen for you in the next 5 years?
Um, I would like to see myself get some sort of like regular gig in entertainment. I know that regular job in entertainment is not really a thing unless you're like
Right.
on a show that lasts like 10 years or something like that. Um, and that could be from any sort of through any sort of level there, either through voiceovers, through doing computer graphics, through on-camera stuff, through even like like a regular background acting sort of gig. As long as it helps pay the bills, I'm glad. Over the next 5 years, though, if anything else, I would love to see myself host some sort of regularly produced show. Whether it's like I mean, I would still would like to do something from my home here. Some sort of like regular podcast or web stream or something like that. But also, I'd like to see myself on like regular broadcast television or cable or something like
Yeah.
that. One of my major ultimate goals is to host a late night talk show.
Yes.
And
You'd be
given
so good
the
at that.
yeah, thank you so much. Given the fact that the late night talk show format has been through so many changes over the last few years, and now is considered by a lot of people, especially people who are watching videos, to be more of an antiquated format. I don't know how long it's going to last. I'd still like to do it, and if the opportunity were to present itself, I would jump at the opportunity immediately. But I don't know. Then
And
again, the game
you,
show format
I was gonna
pretty
say, you
fresh.
recently hosted a game show, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
There is a for anybody who may remember about 5 or 6 years ago, there was an app called HQ Trivia. It was hosted by Scott Rogowski and then later hosted by people like Matt Richardson and Roisman and so forth and so on. And um, that particular app kind of fell by the wayside. It had like a meteoric rise and it also had a precipitous fall. And over the
Oh,
last
that's a
few
great
months,
word. Precipitous fall.
thank you.
Wow.
And that's my Latin teacher responsible there. I tell you. But anyway, but unfortunately, it's been kind of dormant over the last like month or so. Like the last game it was able to produce was in like November of this past year, and a lot of people are probably surprised it didn't even last until November of this past year.
Yeah.
But it did. It had like a weekly show. It would give away $1,500. Anyway, it's been dormant ever since like the middle of December of last year. In the middle of January, this past January, a group of fans were able to get into the servers of the HQ app because apparently the people who own the app did not pay their server bills. So
That's a thing. How do you
so
forget? It's like your one job.
I don't think they forgot. I think they just decided not to do it, and they were just letting the
Oh,
app
got it.
die or something like that. I really don't know, but that's kind of what I'm expecting there. So the people who decided to take over the app were going to put together a new version, not a new version, but like regular versions of the game, just to kind of build things up again. And they were looking for a host. And the thing is that I knew that setting up all of my equipment here would take a little bit too long, but I did have a sample of me hosting like question one of HQ Trivia for a contest that took place that they were doing back in 2018. I didn't win because it was based on Twitter likes, and a young girl in a Harry Potter costume got the most amount of likes, so I had no chance.
They
And
always
so,
do. They always do.
yeah, and it was a Harry Potter related question, so yeah, I had no chance. But but I did have that video still in hand, and so I sent it over to them, and they said, "Yeah, we really like your submission there," and they said that I would be the most likely person to host the show once they get all the bugs taken care of there, because they were pretty much rebuilding the HQ infrastructure from scratch from their own little computers. There it wasn't even they had nothing to do with the original HQ Trivia app at all.
Wow.
So they were scheduled to have a show on Monday. Unfortunately, they weren't ready on Monday, and so they scheduled a game for Thursday, January 19th. and I set up all my equipment. I was able to, set up my microphone and computer and everything like that, and was able to host a full game of HQ Trivia, along with some of the graphics and the sound
That's
effects and everything.
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing though is that it was capped like 400 people because their software wasn't able to accommodate for the 1,600 people that wanted to play the game, and so the game crashed at first. But then they did another game, and it managed to work pretty well with just 400 people. They were going to build up the software with later games, and unfortunately, on the 23rd of January, the original owners of the app paid their servers again, and so the app became dormant, and so my hosting days were over at that point. But
oh no! But hey, it was fun while it lasted, right?
Yeah, it was definitely fun while it lasted. I got a lot of like great responses from people who played the game or watched the videos. A couple of people who used to work at HQ even contacted me and said, that I thought I did a pretty decent job. So, for a person who only hosted it once but watched a lot of HQ episodes,
you've got that for your resume now. You've got the cool graphic from it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the screenshot you posted just killed it. It was so funny. The like motion screenshot, that was so funny.
Oh, the one where my face is all glitchy, or
the like glitch one. Yeah, I don't know why, because like
resting glitch face. Yeah,
the way, the order in which they showed up on my timeline was like pure comedy. It was like, hey, here's me doing this cool thing. Like, here's the announcement. Oh, cool. Here's my headshot on the graphic. Oh, cool. And then like the glitch face. It was just so funny. It was so good. So if listeners and viewers wanted to find you, where could they find your content? And anybody listening, I will link this in the description as well.
Absolutely. It's you can find me on Twitter. That's at Fard Muhammad. I have to say it like that so people can spell it right. That's also my username on Instagram. I have a TikTok, but I don't really use it. I should use it more. And I am also on YouTube. I think it's under like youtube.com/@WTFG, which is supposed to be like I'm supposed to make it look like a regular like a 1980s style television station, just with high resolution graphics. But yeah, those are like the major ones I think there. Oh, and also my website, you can be able to figure out all the stuff that I have been doing and hopefully will be doing over at heyitsfarad.com, HEYITSFARD.com. So yeah, you can be able to find all my contacts in there as well there. So
awesome. Well, Farad, it's been so great catching up with you and seeing you again. I know that you were highly requested to come back as a guest. I'd love to have you on a future episode as well.
Absolutely,
that's not a live stream. I appreciate your story. I appreciate your wisdom. I encourage anyone who hasn't listened to episode 20, I'm going to link it down below as well as soon as this live video has published onto YouTube and wherever else it shows up, so that everybody can go and check out more of your story and check out your content. But most of all, I wish you the best. I wish you the best of luck there in LA, because
I wish you the best too.
Inspiring that you went out there, and I'm proud of you.
Thank you so much. Proud of you too. I mean, moving over to Nashville is quite a trek there. And if you see my buddy Steve Byrne over there, tell him I said hi.
I will. I'll just have him on next as a live stream. I just have him on. I'm like, hey, he says hi. This is Farad.
Nice.
He says hey. But yeah, thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I know it's a little bit earlier where you are, so I hope you have a great evening, a great weekend. And if you're ever going to be on the HQ again, let me know. I'd love to log on.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll be blasting that all over my social media, so don't worry about that.
Yes. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for those who tuned in. Thank you, Farad. Thank you, my listeners, who I seem to have the same people come back every time, which is fantastic. I really appreciate everybody who tuned in. And again, I had my patron of the month. I said his name earlier, but let me just make sure that I say it again properly. HS, he just goes by 2 letters. HS, thank you so much for supporting the show on Patreon. He's brand new. He joined us this week. I'm stoked to have him as part of the Patreon fam. And if you're interested in joining, you can find it at Sidney Davis Jr. Become a Fundie on Patreon, not in real life. Don't do that. But other than that, everybody, have a great night, and I'll talk to you all later.
All right. Until next time.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.